Welcome back, guys, to Apollo Justice Ace Attorney, as we now dodge statements to find a truth. Something must have touched Mr. Misham's lips to pass the poison to it, but it wasn't the coffee mug. We're now talking about something having left his office, his studio, without being able to be found, of which the yellow envelope that Mr. Brushall testified about seems to be what we're talking about. Because his statements, his testimony itself, don't seem to be wrong in any way. He seems to be very truthful as to what he saw and what happened that night. So as we get down to it, we need to prove the letter is important to the case. So as the judge continues, we're going to find out how we do it.
By which you mean? Something other than our witness?
Of course. Don't tell me. Vera Misham? Ha ha ha. Believe me, any comic relief I may provide is entirely unintentional. No, unintentional.
That's the word. And let's see what you've got for us, Mr. Justice.
Well, this thing wasn't at the scene of the crime, so I can't show it to you. But I do have evidence that shows how it could have been taken from the scene. Taken from the scene, you say? So it's nothing we can present. Technically, the red envelope, I think, tells us how it's probably left and links it together with what we need. But how it left and how it's gone, well, that would be a weird piece of evidence that you wouldn't have kind of expected to see. We took the letterbox as a piece of evidence. That's where it's gone. He did see everything he's seen. He's got some incredibly truthful statements to it. This is the only link between that studio and the outside world.
A letterbox?
What did Mr. Brushall just tell us? When he entered the studio on the night of the murder, the victim had just finished writing a letter. Yeah, I said that, and yeah, it was true. Furthermore, he went on to tell us that he put the letter in a yellow envelope and put it in the letterbox. Ah! That very same letterbox was empty. In other words, that night, the yellow envelope disappeared. Ah, yes, intriguing. So an envelope has disappeared from the scene of the crime. Of course, this changes nothing. Huh?
He has a point, Mr. Justice. What we're trying to figure out here is how the poison got into Mr. Misham. It is really important that his envelope, the witness says, he saw disappeared.
Well, if it did disappear, then something did leave the studio that night. That seems very important to me.
Very well, then. The witness will add this to his testimony.
You got it. I still think this fails to change anything, Hair Forehead. I wouldn't be so sure. A letter disappeared from the crime scene that night. This is exactly the opening I've been looking for. So by the sound of it then, we have it as a statement. A letter was put in the post from the studio, but I hardly think that matters. Let's replace the fourth testimony. But you've just said that he's put a letter away. To send a letter, you need one important thing. A stamp. So let's press this again and see if I can now present. I like how the game pokes you in certain ways. You sure about that? Well, to be really precise, oh yeah, he left. I was busy gobbling mint candies the whole time. Yeah, one of those candies might have been poisoned, and no mint candies were felt at the autopsy time. Yeah, it was all good, yeah. Funny. It was a long shot anyway. We are still trying to prove it. We do think the victim ate or ingested it some other way.
Well, Mr. Justice, if you have some proof.
We already went over this text last time. The possibility is there, I can feel it, just maybe not prove it. Not yet. The possibility isn't going to cut it, not now. Mr. Misham ingested that poison via a route other than that coffee. Now can I prove it? Because we've shown that he sent a letter? Is that what we're after, or do I need to go to the fifth statement or press the other statement? I really should have done them first, thinking about it. Technically, if we've made it into the court's brain that this is a thing that we can do, then surely we're there. The letter happened. Yes, prove it. I can. Prove it's possible. Here goes nothing. You do understand what we need? Yeah? Yes, I do understand what we need. Proof, Hair Forehead, not possibilities. Of course. And Prosecutor Gavin, I hope you understand. I'm ready to give you that proof. I just realised the volume was turned down a little bit on my Let's Play for the last episode. Can't allow that. Let's turn it back up. What did you say? I have proof of the disappearing envelope. I saw him writing a letter, I did.
Which was picked up by the mailman, I assume.
Of course, which means that envelope had a stamp on it.
A stamp? Ah!
As we all know, stamps come with dry glue on the back. In order to use the glue, you have to wet it by licking the stamp. Or you could do it other ways. They have brushes. No one worth talking to actually licks stamps in this day and age. Actually, I agree. It's horrible. They taste horrible. I wouldn't lick an envelope either. This is why we got self-sticking envelopes now. Get you away from ingesting the glue. Even if you wanted to talk to him, you couldn't. He's dead after all. You can't tell him to ask if he lifted a stamp or not. Okay, so we licked the stamp. But wait, there's more. How does that explain the atroquinine on the rim of the coffee mug? It was on his lips. If he licked the back of a poison stamp, the poison would get on his tongue, yes? What would then happen if he put the coffee mug to his mouth? You usually get your tongue out of the way from the mug. You're not going Those traces on the mug weren't the killer's doing. It was the other way around.
What?
The coffee mug didn't poison Mr. Misham. Mr. Misham poisoned the coffee mug himself.
I think we've got it. By Jove! Order, order, order! But that doesn't... does it?
Recall, if you would. Atroquinine is a slow-acting poison, yes? The poison entered his body when he put the stamp on that envelope, but his time wasn't up until the very moment he touched his lips to that cup of joe. Gotcha. Where are you clicking? Trucy always seems so into it, doesn't she? Yes, great story, yes. Oh, you got that face again.
You have something to add, Mr. Brushel?
Uh-oh, his nose is picking up another scent. As I believe I mentioned earlier. Well, that's the thing, see? After he put his letter in that envelope, Mr. Misham sat there searching his desk drawer for something. Yes, a stamp. A so-called postage stamp. End quote. But you know, I don't seem to remember him ever finding one.
Maybe he just ran out.
Incidentally, we searched the desk drawer at the scene of the crime. There were no stamps. Not a single one.
That does pose a problem. How will you prove that the stamp was coated with poison?
Actually, I'm glad no other stamps were found. It makes proving the stamp he used was poison possible. Good show, good show. You can't even prove there was a stamp at the scene in the first place.
Well, let's hear what the defense has to say anyway. Where's your evidence to prove the existence of this poison stamp?
Bam. Obvious.
Well, Prosecutor Gavin?
I think our beloved attorney has been licking too many stamps in his free time. Do you smile like that when you torture all your victims? Or just me? I'm really wrong.
Take care that we don't lick you and stick you in the letterbox, Mr. Justice.
I think I'm making this out to be way more complicated than it really is. That stamp would have left a small atroquinine residue or something. Or what? Oi!
Well, let's hear what the defense has to say anyway. Where's your evidence that proves the existence of this poison stamp?
Weirdly enough, I thought I'd already presented it. It's that. It's the tiny frame. But also, the other thing says there was an enclosed stamp in the red envelope. Why can't that work too?
Well, that certainly is a cute little frame, and by little, I mean really little.
Honestly, test the envelope. If it's been in the envelope, you'll find atroquinine in the envelope too. I'm not wrong with presenting that either, as far as I'm concerned. One, you've got written evidence that a stamp was provided with an envelope that was also provided that also left the scene of the crime. I mean, come on, that's good enough, surely. And it's got to have atroquinine on it if the stamp had it.
Oh, that certainly is a cute little frame. And by little, I mean really little.
It was on the victim's desk, Your Honor. Quite empty, as you can see for yourself. I noticed that too during my inspection. So what? Apparently you weren't as observant as you should have been. You see, when you saw this frame, it was missing something quite important.
Missing something?
Yes, a pale bluish stain on the inside of the frame. Atroquinine residue. What? Why wasn't I told about this? The frame is only 2 inches square. The face of the frame is even smaller. Maybe an inch wide at most. You aren't saying... Oh, but I am. Tell me, what fits in such a small frame? A commemorative stamp, perhaps?
Order, order, order! The poison stamp was in this frame.
Impossible.
Prosecutor Gavin!
Why would he put something like that on his desk? Don't tell me he had it in there so he could commit suicide if the mood struck. You know, can I say something? I'd have thought C.
What, Mr. Bushell? And please stop jittering around like that.
The victim was a forger, right? There's a lot of money in that line of work. Forger forges friends, makes enemies too. End quote. So the poison stamp might have been a murder weapon aimed at him. Oh, he wanted this? I can't turn up the volume after your guitar solo again. Sorry. I've already turned it back up to what it's supposed to be. Oh, rich. That's rich. Leave the ridiculous slice of fantasy to the Gaviner's song lyrics, please. Finally, something we agree on. The stamp was a murder weapon? Nonsense. Murder is a simple business. Who would go to such lengths? No one. Oh, I disagree. Come again? Recall, if you would, the victim's reclusive lifestyle. Drew Misham hid from the world. He avoided meetings. His only contact with the outside world was the mail.
The mail?
Now, if you wanted to kill someone you couldn't meet, but you knew read letters, a stamp would be the perfect weapon. Ridiculous. Where's your proof? I want proof. Show us evidence that this poison stamp was sent to him as a murder weapon. I might not have evidence, per se. Things are finally starting to come together. Now I produce the red envelope. What is it, Apollo? Your fists are trembling. I think I know what happened. I don't believe it, but I can see it. I think I know how Mr. Mission was killed.
Well, fill us in, Mr. Justice.
A certain piece of evidence points to the truth, Your Honor. I can show you how someone with the intent to kill sent Mr. Mission the stamp of death.
Isn't this the envelope? The one from 7 years ago?
Think about the text of the letter again. There were 2 pages in the envelope. This is page 1. And this is page 2. I want to draw your attention to one phrase in particular. Send in the enclosed envelope with the enclosed stamp within 3 days. The enclosed stamp, Your Honor.
Ah!
In other words, if I have this straight, the stamp, poison on the stamp, lick, lick, gasp, end quote. Now, what if he had done exactly as the letter asked? He would sign the document, put it in the envelope, and put the stamp on it, right? Then he would put it in his letterbox. 15 minutes wouldn't have elapsed between affixing the stamp and mailing the letter. But the clock started ticking, and when the time came, he drew his last breath. And the murder weapon would be taken away from the scene.
Quite conveniently, thanks to the postal system.
Thank you, postal people. Helping with the murder evidence hiding. Not really. But still. You know, there's a lot of chance to be, like, completely unknowing accomplice to something bad happening. It's really weird in life. Man, I can't turn it up. You're solo. Such a splendid imagination you have here, forehead. Let me confirm one thing with you, if I might. So, this poison stamp was inside this envelope from 7 years ago. Yeah? Is that what you'd have us believe? Really? Well, it is a little bit of a stretch, but that's a possibility. Yes, a very small possibility. How small, I wonder? A poison stamp in this envelope. A stamp that then became the murder weapon. Test it! How do you intend to prove this seeming coincidence? I've just told you! Well... it was 7 years ago and we don't even know who sent that letter. We know the poison lasts that long. And your answer is silence. I see. Very well. I move to... It's not nice to pick on the Fräulein, Clavier. Who's this? Whoa, what? What? Huh? Ah. Emma! Why did he appear then? And wouldn't she call him a glimmerous fop? That's weird. Okay, Emma. But we saw someone completely different for a second. Game's trying to throw us loops. We're in a psychotic break moment. Well, like my Christoph Gabby impression? Did I sound like him? Oh, that's why. Don't quit your day job. Don't you have a crime scene to be looking after, Fräulein Detective? Someone had to come dig you out all the mess you're making in this case. I made that sentence make sense. It was a mess indeed. Mess? You know, none of this would happen if you just trusted in science a little more. You can find out that stamp was in that envelope. Easy. Oh yeah, you're perfect. Thank you for coming along. Not so much for the impression though. Care to explain yourself, Fräulein Detective? Glare at me all you want, but science is on my side. It's all in the residue, right? That's right. The poison detection spray.
Produce the red envelope at once. You can open it on the authority of the court.
Spray time. Spray, spray, spray. Spray, 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 spray. Oh, spray, spray, spray. So did they stick it down or was it loose? That's what I'm wondering. It seems to have only reached one section after all.
Well, would you look at that?
No mistaking it. That's atroquinine residue.
I don't believe it. A murder weapon from the past. Now, 7 years later, it bears its fangs at last.
Absolutely outrageous. Tell me why. Ain't nothing but a... Why didn't this murder take place 7 years ago? Well, there's one possibility. Maybe Mr. Mission figured it out.
Figured what out?
He realized that the person who sent that letter wanted him dead. So he sent his reply with a different stamp.
And put his decisive evidence in a frame? Ugh! You're still here?
Can I make a statement here on the record? I spark laser toothbrush, little razor tooth, eh? Well, wouldn't want to get bitten by you. Claim this scoop is mine! Drew Misham killed in cold blood. By sender of 7-year-old letter, end quote. Now maybe something more succinct. Star falls after 7-year delay, end quote.
Order! 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 I see no room for further argument here. Though I admit this is all coming as quite a shock. To think that the murder weapon reached his mouth after 7 years. Stamp his ticket straight to afterlife. End quote.
Oh, I think the witness is a bad influence on our judge.
I see no need for further debate on this matter. The sender of that letter 7 years ago could hardly have been our defendant.
Apollo! I think we just won.
Very well. This court finds the defendant.
Why couldn't she have done it though? Just to be on the prosecution side, yeah? Is this the bright future of our legal system?
Prosecutor, Gavin?
A ticket to the afterlife from 7 years ago. Tickets for Gaviner's shows are invalid after 2 weeks.
But it doesn't make sense any other way.
It boggles my mind that so many people haven't noticed this. There's a fatal contradiction in Herr Forehead's claim. Contradiction? Well, yeah, actually, when you really think about it. So, if he knew it was a forgery... Not forgery. If he knew it was a murder weapon, and he framed it to keep it from killing him, that makes no sense because you dispose of it. You just destroy everything. You wouldn't keep it around. And then, like, 7 years later, you go, oh, you know what? I'm going to use a stamp that's incredibly well stored that I know is poisonous. I'll use that. That makes no sense, unless he had enough. I don't know. A poison stamp was placed in his envelope 7 years ago, whereupon it was framed until now. If that's the case, then why would Drew Misham have done what he did? Exactly. Emma explained that. He must have realized it was poison, exactly, so why would you use it? Therein lies the rub. 7 years ago, the forger Drew Misham sensed the trap and put the stamp in a frame. I do not debate this, but it's stupid. But this begs the question. Why 7 years later did he use that stamp on the night of the murder? And why didn't he dispose of it? Like, straight away. Fire. Much fire. Surely, you don't mean to suggest that Mr. Misham simply forgot? And he could have glued it on in many other ways if he knew as well. He put the murder weapon in a frame on his desk for 7 years? And forgot? You expect us to believe he sprang the trap on himself?
While I admit this is all quite shocking myself, it does seem highly unlikely that he would fall afoul of a trap that had been sitting on his desk for 7 years.
Apollo! I don't think we're winning anymore. I'm glad to see we're all back in the real world now. Welcome back to reality. We've been waiting for you. Hair forehead. Okay, then how would you explain the poison stamp that was in this envelope? The poison stamp? Where exactly is this poison stamp again? Have you brought it to court for us? No, because it's been sent off. I see no proof that such a thing ever existed, apart from, like, the Atroquinine everywhere else. We know it existed. What about the Atroquinine residue, huh? Oh, I agree. That does seem to be Atroquinine residue. But hair forehead is certainly no stamp. Yeah, but surely you could analyze it and find traces of stamp glue. Even if your precious poison stamp did exist, Drew Misham never would have used it. That is all.
I believe we've come to a conclusion. Again.
Apollo, were we wrong the whole time? I can't believe it. The poison traces match up. It can't be coincidence.
I'd like to bring some closure to this issue sometime this year. Mr. Justice.
Yes, Your Honor?
Let's review the facts and see where we stand. 7 years ago, Drew Misham received a red envelope. There were traces of the poison atroquinine on the document inside that envelope. A similar trace was also found at the crime scene, on this tiny picture frame. The defense has indicated the possibility of a yellow envelope, an envelope that left the scene of the crime with a poison stamp on it.
Yes, but even if this envelope contained a poison stamp, and Drew Misham, knowing this, put it in a frame, he never would have used that stamp.
I'm afraid you're right, which means there's a fatal flaw in the defense's case.
I haven't been on the wrong track this whole time, I'm sure of it. The traces of atroquinine, the envelope, the frame, and Drew Misham's mysterious death. They're all connected somehow.
Well, Mr. Justice, do you have a conclusion for us?
The defense stands by its case, Your Honor. We've seen that the logical outcome of the evidence makes no sense, which means that one of our clues must be a fake.
Ah, a fake clue?
Fascinating. And if we find this fake, your wild fantasies will prove quite reasonable, yeah? The fake clue that's thrown us off the poison's trail is none other than the red envelope, the frame, or Drew Misham. Well, the red envelope and the frame would actually just prove it's completely wrong altogether, because everything hinges on the stamp being the murder weapon for us currently. Otherwise, it's the coffee, and then it's Vera Misham. So the only thing we can choose at this point is quite obviously Drew himself.
The victim was a fake clue? I'm afraid I don't understand.
It's because it's outside of the box thinking, Judge. It can't be the other two, because that destroys our case. I'll explain. We have an envelope, a frame, a pineapple and a pen, and a mug, linked by poison. Don't know why that sentence structure made me think that, and why I'm going off on tangents so many times this episode. That all makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the victim himself. Congratulations, you completely lost me. So the fake evidence is none other than the master of fake himself, the forger. It makes a good story, I'll give you that. The fake clue. Fakes. Forgeries. Ah! I know that face. That's the I just had an idea face. Thankfully, it's just that you've seen. I don't know if I'm right, but I'm going with it anyway. It's your poop face. What if our forger is the fake? Come again. 7 years ago, our forger sniffed a trap and stepped aside. 7 years passed. Now, the forger stumbles into that very same trap and dies. Why?
That's what I want to know.
Because the forger who was killed was a fake. Here we are again. The victim was a fake. One forger smelled the trap. One forger fell into the trap. That's two forgers, and one of them was a fake.
Order, order, order!
So you were telling us that Drew Misham, the victim, was a fake? Well, if he was the fake, who was the real forger? You better not be claiming there was some kind of switcheroo.
I'm afraid we're gonna have to back up your story. Mr. Justice, show us just who was the real Drew Mission was.
Yes, sentences. Drew Mission wasn't the real forger. There's only one other person it could have been. Understood, Your Honor. Forger Drew Mission was himself a forgery. The real forger was the only other person in the room that day. Vera Mission, you've learnt the tricks of the trade. Most likely, I guess. There can only be one explanation, really. The real identity of the forger known as Drew Mission is none other than his only daughter, Vera Mission. She found it. Wait a second. Didn't it just say she was 16 or something?
Order, order, order!
Can I see the profiles again? Nope, not at the moment.
Mr. Justice, this is going out on a limb even for you.
I kind of agree. I mean, Vera a forger? Let's consider it before you write it off entirely. If you look at the paintings in the studio, one fact becomes quite clear. Forgery had been taking place in that studio for quite some time. The forger wasn't caught in that trap 7 years ago. This could only mean that the one who was caught in the trap wasn't the forger.
Well, actually, that does make a certain kind of sense.
One more thing. Only 2 sets of fingerprints were found in the forger's studio. Drew Misham's and Vera Misham's. If we know that Drew Misham wasn't the forger, that leaves only one possibility. By process of elimination. The forger was Vera Misham. Well... fascinating. Oh, hello.
Vera Misham! You've been paying attention to the trial so far?
Let's just ask her and be done with it, shall we? Who are you? Who is the forger, Drew Misham? Was that an expression of emotion I saw on her face? She's staring holes into Prosecutor Gavin's face. I'm used to being stared at by Fräuleins, believe me. Though they usually talk to me too. Tell us, were you the one who forged those works of art? Yes. Just matter of fact. Okay then. You just admit to a crime as well, by the way. That's not exactly the easiest thing to do.
So the forger Drew Misham was you?
Yes, it was me.
What?
The court was in an uproar and it wasn't coming down. We had to break for a 10-minute recess. Well, to be continued it is. On a bombshell we go out and save the game. Because I'm guessing more testimony is to come. This time from Vera, as we've cleared up who the forger actually was. Pretty much pinning down the envelope, the letter, the stamp as the murder weapon. Join me next time for more Apollo Justice as we get deeper into the rabbit hole. Bye-bye.